Hey everyone, how's it going? You're watching Koki Lumpur. Yesterday I watched a video that was long overdue for me to watch. It came out a year ago, but I haven't watched it for one reason or another. Call it procrastination. The title of that video is Inside a Pig Butchering Scam by Jim Browning. For those who've not watched that video or never even heard of it in the first place, I'll link it down in the description below. I highly recommend it because it's going to be the most insightful, eye-opening 16 minutes of your life that you've had today. And for those who don't know who Jim Browning is, I've been following him for many years now. He is a guy with 4 million subscribers on YouTube, and he does a form of scam baiting, but I'll probably more accurately describe it as anti-scam vigilantism, because what he does is he flips the tables on the various kinds of scammers that both you and I have heard about, ranging from your classic tech support scams where people call you up and tell you that your computer has a virus and they try to help you fix it and they're actually wanting to scam you for money, all the way to this latest trend of pig butchering, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now, I don't think Jim does this as his full-time job, and even if he did, he probably doesn't have someone employing him to do this. That would be a pretty weird job to hire someone for. And while his channel does have some ads and some sponsors, he doesn't really post videos on a very regular basis. Sometimes months can go by without a single video coming out. And I think he's really doing this as a form of volunteer/public service to raise awareness of the different kinds of scams that exist out there and help prevent people from falling for them. And at the same time, he tries to cripple these scam call centers by hacking into their systems and crippling them from the inside. And the purpose of my video over here isn't to talk about the different kinds of scams and how they work and how to avoid them. That is a topic that Jim is an expert at explaining, and I'll leave him to help you out with that rabbit hole if you want to dive into it. The purpose of my video over here is I want to prescribe a solution for any country that wants to take it up on a really cost-efficient, time-saving, and probably extremely effective way to raise awareness on different kinds of scams to your citizens and prevent them from falling for those scams to begin with. And if you're thinking that's kind of a weird video to be making, why am I watching this video? Well, it also helps you save money because you are the taxpayer who ultimately funds the various efforts that your government does in order to raise awareness and prevent people from falling into these scams. And I'm going to jump right into this solution because I hate freaking clickbait. And I know a lot of you have a short attention span as well, and you don't want to sit through a 8-minute long video before hearing what the solution is. That solution is for these countries to reach out to Jim Browning and ask him, hey Jim, we noticed you have a lot of videos talking about the different kinds of scams that go on and how to avoid them and how they actually work. Can we use your videos? Maybe add some subtitles to them, maybe dub them in our local languages like Thai or Malay or Chinese. And can we broadcast them on our televisions, broadcast them in our public spaces like those digital signages at the bus stop, across waiting rooms in hospitals, post offices? Can we do all of that? And I don't know Jim Browning personally. I don't even know if that's his real name. But based on the number of years watching all of his videos, I can say with a 99% confidence that he's probably gonna say, sure man, go ahead, do just that. I'll be happy to volunteer my videos to you for free. That's what I bet he's gonna respond should these countries reach out to him, because he actually seems to legitimately want to spread the message and prevent people from losing their money to all these assholes. And why I think that's important is because based on this one video, which I just recommended, the Inside a Pig Butchering Scam, he goes into so much detail that helps people understand how scams work and also how scam call centers work as a business. Because what a lot of these different countries, especially in Southeast Asia, like to do is they like to talk about how prevalent scams are and how so many people lose their money to these scammers every single year, numbering to the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars every single year. But they never talk about how these different kinds of scams work on the really, really granular scale, which Jim Browning goes into in a lot of his videos. They also never talk about how these scam call centers operate to begin with. I mean, sure, sometimes you hear like a news story that, I don't know, in Malaysia or in Singapore, they've caught like a dozen scammers operating out of a house. And that doesn't really drill in the magnitude and severity and the professionalism that goes in to creating and running all these scams on people to begin with. Jim Browning does in his videos. If you watch that Inside a Pig Butchering Scam video, like that, by the way, is that one video. If these countries can't be bothered going through Jim Browning's entire channel to pick out a video to showcase in all their hospitals, bus stops, public places on TV, just use the one that I just talked about, his latest video that is called Inside a Pig Butchering Scam, because he describes what a pig butchering scam is, which is really a hybrid of a confidence scam slash romance scam. And he talks about what goes on behind the scenes. These guys have an entire campus. That's right, folks. They have a cluster of 4 dedicated buildings for their scam operations. They have thousands of scammers, their employees, running scams worldwide across different languages. They're not just running these things in English or Mandarin, contrary to what places like Singapore like to tell their people, for example, that all these scammers are targeting these local Southeast Asian countries, blah, blah, blah. These scam call centers are targeting places from Southeast Asia all the way to South America, to North America, to Europe. They have multilingual scams going on, and not all of these scammers speak all those local languages, but they have like auto translation going on. They have like custom software that basically is a container for multiple WhatsApp instances, and those different instances come with auto translation, so they can now write things in English and have that translated to whatever language that their target victim speaks. They're targeting not just big countries like Singapore or Brazil or the US or big European countries. Jim Browning even mentions that they're targeting places like freaking Uzbekistan, who's like, I don't even know what the language of Uzbekistan is. They're targeting everyone. And the magnitude of their operations is ridiculous. Like, a lot of people in Southeast Asia might think like it's just some guy operating out of his mom's basement, or it's like these dozen or so foreigners who are, renting a house and trying to scam people. That's not how it really works. But that seems to be the impression that a lot of these government anti-scam awareness campaigns seem to give people. It's a lot bigger than just a freaking house with a few people in a bunk bed. These folks have entire dormitories for their scammers to sleep in, because they literally have thousands of employees in a freaking campus. If you're thinking like a university campus, you're absolutely correct. They're basically running something equivalent to like a Google, Apple, Nvidia kind of campus in the Bay Area in the Silicon Valley, or like SAP in Germany in Heidelberg. They have multiple buildings with your offices, many facilities. They have in-house medical services and an in-house pharmacy in their freaking scam campus, as Jim Browning highlights in his video, which is why I talked about how valuable it is to watch that video to begin with. And not only that, they have freaking professional models. You see, the way that a pig butchering scam works is there's 2 variations. One is they kind of wait for you to fall into their trap, which is often like you match with a person who has a glamorous profile on a dating app, and they start talking to you and they want to take that conversation onto a text messaging service like WhatsApp. Or the more common variant that happens in Southeast Asia is they have a cold outreach process where they reach out to the potential victim and tell them that either they're like a long lost friend who's changed the number, don't you remember my voice? Or they text them saying that I'm arriving at the airport in a few hours, in a few days. Can you come here to pick me up? And of course, you're going to say to them, like, I don't know who you are, or you've gotten the wrong number. And that's when they're going to be super apologetic, and they're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong number. By the way, how are you? By the way, how are you doing? Hope you're having a lovely day. And they're going to try to small talk their way to gain your confidence into eventually downloading a crypto exchange app, which might be completely legitimate. It might be from a place like Binance or OKX. but they're also going to try to get you to download another app, which is almost always their app that they've created, in order to siphon all the money that you've put into your crypto account from your bank account. And like I said, I'm not here to explain the details as to how the different scams work, but that's how that latest scam works. And that is something that these people have already thought about. If a person texts you out of the blue and has a profile picture of a pretty lady, you're going to be really skeptical that this is an actual person, because like no way there's going to be like this hot lady who's accidentally texted the wrong number and now she's trying to hit on me. And some people might want to be more, I guess, confident that they're speaking with a lady, and they're going to want to video call these people. These scammers have an actual attractive lady at hand, ready to video call with their potential victim. That's right. They have models working for them in order to help increase the confidence, increase the likelihood that their victims will be convinced that this is an actual person and that they will have that potential to date this person, and let's go with their freaking high return investment and partner up with them and freaking lose all your money. This is something that no country that I've seen who runs scam awareness, anti-scam programs have done. And what got me making this video in the first place is because I've realized that there's a lot of countries, especially in Southeast Asia, places like Singapore and Malaysia, who are spending an inordinate amount of taxpayers' money on creating these scam awareness campaigns, anti-scam campaigns, anti-scam events, anti-scam applications where people can download these scanners onto their phone. And all of this shit ain't cheap. You're gonna have to employ graphics designers to create images, those cute little comic strips, those billboards that you have in public telling people that if someone cold approaches you on WhatsApp and tells you that they're in love with you, it might be a scam. You're gonna have to employ software engineers, developers to create these anti-scam apps. Yeah, they exist. From countries like Singapore, like Scam Shield, that scan incoming calls, that scan incoming messages to identify phone numbers and the contents of messages as potential scams and alert the users. There is a requirement to get marketing people to get these campaigns up and running, to raise awareness to the general public, all these scams that exist, the different kinds of scams, how they work, how to avoid them. And you also need managers to manage these graphic designers, these software engineers, and these marketing teams as part of your anti-scam division in public sector. And guess what? You're also going to need HR to manage all these people, to interview the people that you bring onto these teams, to manage these managers, essentially. And when I do the tablecloth math over here, the payroll and premises, because you also need an office that you either rent or buy to house your entire anti-scam division in your government, amounts to at least a few million, if not tens of millions of dollars every single year. And in my opinion, a lot of these different efforts by governments aren't that effective at all. And I don't really have any data off my hand to prove this, so again, it's just my opinion. But think about it from a common sense perspective, at least the way that I know that a lot of these governments run, is if these anti-scam apps, if these scam awareness campaigns, if whatever they're doing to try to educate the public and prevent them from losing money to scammers actually works, even if it works a teeny tiny bit, like 5%, they are going to thump their chests and brag about it across all their mainstream media outlets that they own about how effective their efforts are at educating the public and reducing the money lost by the average Joe to scammers who are trying to take their money. They're going to run all these advertisements and billboards telling people that, oh, not only are we educating you on scams, we're also helping to prevent you from losing your money. I don't see any of this coming out. I don't see press releases. I don't see all this gloating. Think about that and compare it to the amount of gloating that they did 5 years back when we've managed to reduce the number of cases of this really deadly virus with a 99% survival rate. That's why we had to take away all your rights and force you to get an irreversible medical procedure into your body. We're so effective at doing our jobs. Look at us. Look at all the good we're doing for the public. I don't see that happening for scams. So if I don't see any gloating happening on that front, effectiveness of all those efforts, multi-million, tens of millions of dollars spent every single year trying to prevent people from getting scammed, is extremely questionable, to say the least. And why do I recommend Jim Browning's videos? Again, they already exist. They're made by a guy who is basically volunteering his time and life to fight these scumbag scammers. And on top of that, he goes into so much detail that is not even scratched at the surface of the iceberg that many of these countries cover in their anti-scam efforts. He not just goes into what the scams are, how they work. He goes into the details. He gives examples of people getting scammed and how those different kinds of people react to scammers and how they're actually falling for those scams. And eventually he kind of calls those scam victims directly and he tells them, hey, you know, like that phone call that you just got like a few minutes ago, they're from like a guy who's trying to con you out of your money. Like he does that. He even goes into that level of detail where he exposes how all these different scam call centers work at a magnitude that I think most people in Southeast Asia or even the globe cannot even wrap their heads around. It is so crazy because these scam call centers are essentially businesses. They work like your classic corporate white collar companies that do legal things, except they're, you know, instead of selling you graphics cards or software or shit that you don't need, they're trying to con people out of their money. And they have the same playbook as a typical legal legitimate business. They have people operations. They have all sorts of roles, from sales, the people who call you up, all the way to marketing, all the way to HR, all the way to your models who go onto video calls to convince people that they're real hot girls and they legitimately want to help you invest and make tons of money with tons of high returns in the next 2 weeks. These guys are professionals. They're not guys in mom's basement trying to con old retired guy out of $5,000. These guys invest literally millions of dollars into their scam operations in order to get an even bigger return from their victims. And if everyone in society realized the magnitude, the investment that the scammers put in terms of time and money into their own operations in order to extract that money out of their victims, they would realize the levels and lengths at which these guys would go to con people out of their money. And as a result, they're going to be extremely wary and they're going to start to question every single time they get a phone call claiming it's someone from their bank that has seen a fraudulent transaction go through on their credit card. They're going to start to question each and every time they get a text message from someone asking them, oh, do you want to pick me up from the airport? Oh, sorry, the wrong number. Oh, by the way, how's your day? Have you eaten? What are you doing? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. They'll start to question all of this shit. Because right now they think that it's just some random dude on a shoestring budget. And that's part of the freaking problem, in my opinion. And yeah, if countries actually try to do this, I would love to see the results out of it, because I'll be willing to bet if there was a country that actually reached out to Jim Browning and asked him, can we use your videos? Can we give them subtitles or dub over the audio for our local audience and then showcase these videos in a public place? And it doesn't even have to be multiple videos. It can just be that one video inside a pig butchering scam. Because not only does it go through the latest scam that's going on in the last few years, you know, those tech support scams are so 2000s, bro. It's all about the pig butchering now. Not just goes into how those scams work, goes into the efforts that go into, you know, making that scam work as the way it does. And by the way, before we end this video, it's called the pig butchering scam because it's kind of like a small baby pig that you kind of fatten up. You know, the pig is your bank account basically, and you gain their confidence to the point where it's time to butcher them. That's when they siphon all the money that you've just put in from your bank account into that crypto exchange that they've now hacked using the other app that they asked you to install into your phone. That's it for today, and I hope you learned something. See you all in the next video. If you have thoughts on this, you've gotten scammed before, you've helped someone else not get scammed. If you think that this is a stupid or the smartest idea that you've ever heard, leave a comment down in the section below because I'd love to hear from you, and I appreciate you watching till the very end. Take care. Bye for now.